Do you check your blood pressure at home and trust the numbers you see on the screen? What if I told you that a simple mistake you make every day could make your blood pressure appear much higher or much lower than it really is? I'm Dr. Elisa Wright, and after more than 2 decades caring for older adults with heart and circulation problems, I can tell you this with complete honesty. Most people are not misled by broken monitors. They are misled by small habits that seem harmless. A chair that feels comfortable, a sleeve rolled just a little too tightly, a rushed reading before breakfast, a measurement taken after walking in from the mailbox. These do not feel like major mistakes, but blood pressure is not a forgiving measurement. It changes with position, muscle tension, stress, breathing, bladder fullness, conversation, timing, clothing, and technique. When even one of those goes wrong, the number can shift dramatically. In today's video, we'll reveal the most common blood pressure measuring mistakes seniors make at home and show you exactly how to avoid them. If you or a loved one takes blood pressure medication or is concerned about heart health, this information could help you get more accurate readings and better protect your health. Make sure you stay until the end, because one of the most common mistakes is something most people do every single day without realizing it. Before we begin, I want you to think about the last time you checked your blood pressure. Were you in a hurry? Were you worried about what the number might say? Did you sit down and immediately press the start button? Did you check it after climbing stairs, carrying groceries, or finishing breakfast? If so, you are not alone. In fact, millions of older adults do exactly the same thing every day. The problem is that many of them are making important health decisions based on numbers that may not truly reflect what is happening inside their bodies. That can lead to unnecessary fear, sleepless nights, extra medication discussions, and constant anxiety about strokes, heart attacks, and declining health. Have you ever looked at a blood pressure reading and felt your heart sink? Have you ever wondered why your numbers seem completely different from one day to the next? Have you ever felt frustrated because you were doing everything right, taking your medications, watching your salt intake, staying active, and yet the monitor still seemed determined to give you bad news? If those questions sound familiar, then today's conversation is for you. My goal is not just to teach you how to use a blood pressure monitor. My goal is to help you understand your body better so you can stop living in fear of numbers and start using those numbers as a tool for better health. I'm Dr. Natalia Wright, and welcome to Dr. Natalia Wright Senior Health. What many people don't realize is that blood pressure is one of the most sensitive measurements in medicine. Unlike height or eye color, blood pressure is constantly changing. It responds to emotions, it responds to movement, it responds to pain, stress, excitement, dehydration, temperature, sleep quality, and even anticipation. The very act of worrying about your blood pressure can raise your blood pressure. That is why proper technique matters so much. The monitor is only as accurate as the conditions under which it is used. Let me start with Elaine because her story honestly stays with me. Elaine was 72 years old, recently retired, and incredibly organized. She was the type of person who kept color-coded calendars and neatly labeled folders for everything. When her doctor recommended home blood pressure monitoring, she embraced the idea completely. She purchased a high-quality monitor, read the instruction booklet, and began checking her readings every morning. Within days, she became alarmed. One morning, her reading was 168/94. The next day, it was 161/91. Then 171/96. Each number felt like a warning sign. Each number seemed to confirm her worst fears. The more she checked, the more frightened she became. Soon she was taking readings multiple times a day. She started searching online for stroke symptoms. She began waking up at night wondering whether she was developing a serious cardiovascular problem. Her anxiety grew stronger with every reading. By the time she came to see me, she looked exhausted. When I asked her to demonstrate exactly how she measured her blood pressure at home, something became clear almost immediately. She wasn't actually measuring a resting blood pressure. She thought she was, but she wasn't. Every morning she would wake up, make the bed, walk around the kitchen, prepare coffee, feed the dog, glance through emails, and then sit down for a measurement. From her perspective, she had barely done anything. From her body's perspective, the day had already started. Her heart had already responded to movement. Her nervous system had already shifted into activity mode. Her blood vessels had already adapted to standing and walking. The number she saw on the screen was not her true resting blood pressure. It was her body's response to an active morning. That discovery changed everything. And it brings us to one of the most common mistakes older adults make when measuring blood pressure at home: measuring too soon after activity. Many people hear the phrase, "avoid exercise before checking your blood pressure," and immediately think of treadmills, jogging, swimming, or gym workouts. But the body doesn't define activity the same way we do. To your cardiovascular system, carrying laundry is activity. Walking to the mailbox is activity. Climbing stairs is activity. Vacuuming is activity. Making the bed is activity. Even rushing to answer the phone can temporarily change blood pressure. One patient, Leonard, taught me this lesson in a memorable way. Leonard was 76 and lived in a beautiful home with a long driveway. Every afternoon, he would walk down to collect the mail and then return uphill, carrying letters, newspapers, and sometimes packages. The moment he came inside, he would sit down and check his blood pressure. His readings consistently looked high. He worried that his medication was failing. His family worried too. But when we changed just one thing, waiting quietly for several minutes before measuring, his numbers improved dramatically. Nothing about his heart had changed. Nothing about his arteries had changed. Only his timing had changed. That's how powerful this mistake can be. The human body needs time to settle. Think about a snow globe. When you shake it, tiny particles swirl everywhere. If you want to see clearly through the glass, you must allow those particles to settle. Your cardiovascular system works similarly. After movement, your body is adjusting. Heart rate changes. Blood flow changes. Blood vessels adjust. Hormones shift. If you measure during that adjustment period, you are not capturing a true resting value. You are capturing recovery. And recovery blood pressure is not the same thing as resting blood pressure. This is particularly important for seniors because the body's ability to transition smoothly between activity and rest changes with age. What feels like a small effort can create a much larger cardiovascular response than it did 20 years ago. That doesn't mean something is wrong. It simply means the rules matter more. One of the best habits you can develop is creating a small ritual before every reading. Sit down, relax your shoulders, place your feet on the floor, breathe slowly. Allow your body 5 full minutes of quiet rest. Not 1 minute, not 2, 5. Those 5 minutes can make the difference between a useful reading and a misleading one. And while we're talking about things that seem small but create surprisingly large effects, let's discuss a mistake that shocks almost everyone when they first hear about it: measuring with a full bladder. Now, I know that doesn't sound dramatic. In fact, it sounds almost silly. Many people laugh when I bring it up. But after years of caring for older adults, I can tell you this is one of the most overlooked causes of falsely elevated blood pressure readings. Walter was 79 years old, a retired accountant who loved routine. Every morning he followed the exact same schedule: wake up, sit in his chair, check blood pressure, write the number down, then head to the bathroom. Day after day, week after week, month after month. Eventually, he noticed something troubling. His readings were getting higher, not dramatically higher, but steadily higher. His diet hadn't changed. His medications hadn't changed. His weight hadn't changed. Yet the numbers continued creeping upward. When I asked whether he used the bathroom before measuring, he looked surprised. "No," he said, "I do that afterward." That one detail explained far more than he realized. A full bladder places stress on the body. It activates parts of the nervous system that can temporarily increase blood pressure. The effect isn't imaginary. It's physiological. It's measurable. And for some individuals, it can be significant. When Walter began emptying his bladder before measuring, his readings returned much closer to expected levels. No medication adjustment, no special treatment, no miracle cure, just a simple change in routine. I often tell patients that blood pressure is like a highly sensitive microphone. It picks up signals from all kinds of places. Some signals are important, others are simply background noise. A full bladder creates noise, and when noise becomes part of the measurement, confusion follows. This is especially relevant first thing in the morning, because that's when many people are most likely to be holding urine. If you're checking blood pressure immediately after waking up, take a moment to use the bathroom first. It may seem like a small step, but small steps often produce the biggest improvements in accuracy. One of the fascinating things about cardiovascular health is that major problems often begin with minor misunderstandings. People assume a reading is accurate when it isn't. They worry about numbers that don't reflect reality. They become stressed. That stress affects future readings, and before long, they find themselves trapped in a cycle of fear. I've seen seniors lose sleep because of readings that were never truly representative of their resting blood pressure. I've seen people become convinced they were on the edge of a medical emergency when the real issue was simply poor measuring technique. And that's why education matters so much. Because once you understand these hidden influences, you stop being controlled by every number that appears on the screen. You begin seeing the bigger picture. You begin recognizing patterns instead of reacting to isolated readings. You begin making decisions based on information rather than fear. And perhaps most importantly, you regain confidence. As we continue, we're going to uncover several more surprisingly common mistakes that can dramatically affect home blood pressure readings. Some involve conversation, some involve posture, some involve the way you sit, the way you breathe, and even the furniture you choose. And one of them is so common that millions of people unknowingly make it every single day while believing they are doing everything correctly. The truth is that accurate blood pressure measurement is not complicated, but it is precise. The details matter. The good news is that once you learn those details, you can dramatically improve the quality of the information you bring to your doctor, giving both of you a much clearer picture of your heart health and helping ensure that important treatment decisions are based on reality rather than misleading numbers. Many seniors are surprised to learn that even after fixing activity timing and bladder fullness, their readings can still be inaccurate because of something that feels completely harmless. In fact, some of the biggest measurement errors happen when people are sitting quietly and believe they are doing everything correctly. The problem isn't always movement. Sometimes it's what happens while you're sitting still. One evening, I was speaking with Gloria, a 70-year-old grandmother who loved her daily video calls with her granddaughter. Every evening around the same time, she would sit in her favorite chair, wrap the blood pressure cuff around her arm, and begin chatting while taking her reading. It seemed efficient. It felt convenient. After all, she was sitting down and relaxing. What could possibly be wrong with that? The answer turned out to be quite a lot. Her blood pressure readings were wildly inconsistent. Some evenings, they looked excellent. Other evenings, they looked alarming. There seemed to be no obvious pattern. Medication changes didn't explain it. Diet didn't explain it. Activity levels didn't explain it. Then we looked at what she was doing during the measurement itself. Some evenings, she was laughing. Some evenings, she was telling stories. Some evenings, she was discussing family concerns. Some evenings, she was emotional. And every one of those situations affected her body. People often assume talking is harmless during blood pressure measurement. The reality is very different. Every sentence changes breathing patterns. Every emotional reaction changes nervous system activity. Every laugh, every story, every discussion creates physiological responses that influence blood pressure. The monitor cannot distinguish between a happy conversation and a stressful one. It simply measures the body's response. That is why one of the most important rules of accurate blood pressure monitoring is also one of the simplest: silence. Not partial silence, not mostly silent, completely silent. No television, no phone, no texting, no conversations, no reading headlines, no scrolling social media, no reacting to the previous reading, just stillness. Many seniors find this surprisingly difficult because we live in a world filled with constant stimulation. We are accustomed to multitasking. We watch television while eating. We talk while cooking. We check messages while waiting in line. The habit becomes automatic. But blood pressure measurement is one of those rare situations where doing less produces better results. Think about it this way. Your monitor is trying to capture a snapshot of your cardiovascular system at rest. Every distraction adds movement to that picture. Every conversation creates blur. And when the picture becomes blurry, the information becomes less useful. I often tell patients that the most accurate blood pressure reading comes from a moment that feels almost boring. Sit quietly, breathe naturally, say nothing. Allow your body to exist without stimulation for a few minutes. Then let the monitor do its work. The goal is not entertainment. The goal is accuracy. And accuracy brings us to another mistake that many people never suspect because it feels so comfortable: sitting the wrong way. Now, if I asked most people whether posture affects blood pressure, many would probably say no. After all, a chair is a chair, right? Not exactly. Marjorie was 74 years old and had what she proudly called her perfect blood pressure chair. It was a soft recliner positioned beside a lamp and a small table. She loved it. She spent hours there reading books, watching television, and talking with family. Naturally, it became her blood pressure station. The problem was that her posture changed every reading. Sometimes she leaned to one side. Sometimes she crossed her legs. Sometimes her feet barely touched the floor. Sometimes she perched on the edge of the seat, and every one of those positions altered the measurement. When we adjusted nothing except her sitting position, her numbers improved significantly. The monitor hadn't been malfunctioning, her posture had been interfering. This surprises many people because posture feels unrelated to blood pressure, but posture directly affects circulation. Crossed legs can raise readings. Unsupported backs force muscles to remain active. Dangling feet alter body mechanics. Leaning forward creates tension. Even small changes can influence the result. The correct position is more formal than most people expect. Sit in a sturdy chair. Support your back. Keep both feet flat on the floor. Keep your legs uncrossed. Relax your shoulders. Avoid leaning forward. Avoid twisting. Avoid sitting on the edge of the chair. Allow your body to rest naturally. Some people hear these instructions and think they sound overly strict. But remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to eliminate variables. Every unnecessary variable creates another opportunity for error. And speaking of variables, there is one that creates some of the largest blood pressure errors of all: arm position. This single mistake has convinced countless people that their blood pressure was dangerously high when it actually wasn't. Raymond was 78 years old and checked his blood pressure faithfully every day. He sat on his couch, placed the cuff on his left arm, held the television remote in his right hand, pressed the button, and waited. Everything seemed perfectly reasonable, except for one detail. His cuffed arm was hanging below heart level. That small positioning error dramatically altered his readings. When we repeated the measurement with his arm properly supported at heart level, his systolic pressure dropped nearly 20 points. 20 points! Think about that for a moment. The difference between a concerning reading and a manageable reading wasn't medication. It wasn't diet. It wasn't exercise. It was arm position. Gravity matters. Blood pressure is measured inside arteries. The relationship between the cuff and the heart affects what the monitor detects. If the arm hangs too low, readings may appear falsely elevated. If the arm sits too high, readings may appear falsely low. That is why arm support is essential, not optional, essential. Your arm should rest comfortably on a table, desk, or firm surface. The middle of the cuff should be approximately level with the center of your chest, not hanging, not floating, not supported by muscle effort, simply resting. The arm should feel relaxed. Many seniors discover that fixing arm position alone transforms the quality of their readings. And yet, there is another issue that often hides in plain sight: the cuff itself. Nora was 69 years old, petite, and increasingly worried about her health. Her home readings consistently appeared high. Doctors adjusted medications. Family members became concerned. She experienced dizziness and fatigue. Everyone assumed her blood pressure remained difficult to control. Then, someone measured her arm and examined her cuff size. The cuff was too large. The numbers guiding her treatment were inaccurate. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I've seen larger individuals using cuffs that were too small. Their readings appeared artificially elevated. Again, treatment decisions were being influenced by bad information. This is why cuff size matters so much. A blood pressure monitor is not a one-size-fits-all device. The cuff must match the circumference of the upper arm. Too small can distort readings. Too large can distort readings. Even an expensive monitor cannot overcome the wrong cuff size. I want you to imagine trying to weigh yourself on a scale designed for something completely different. The measurement would be unreliable from the beginning. The same principle applies here. Accuracy begins before the monitor ever turns on. It begins with using the proper equipment. And unfortunately, many people purchase monitors based on convenience, appearance, or price without verifying whether the device fits their body correctly. A validated upper arm monitor remains the preferred choice for most seniors because it generally provides the most dependable results. The key word is validated, not trendy, not popular, validated. Because when your health decisions depend on a number, that number needs to be trustworthy. Another mistake that creates tremendous confusion is measuring at completely random times. Howard, an 80-year-old retired teacher, carried a notebook everywhere. He diligently recorded his blood pressure readings. At first glance, his records looked impressive. Pages and pages of numbers, dates, times, observations. But there was a problem. Nothing was consistent. Some readings happened before breakfast. Others occurred after lunch. Some were taken after errands. Others happened late at night. When he looked at the notebook, he saw chaos. He thought his blood pressure was wildly unstable. In reality, his measurement routine was unstable. Blood pressure naturally changes throughout the day. Morning readings differ from afternoon readings. Afternoon readings differ from evening readings. Hormones change. Activity changes. Meals influence circulation. Medication timing influences results. That doesn't mean something is wrong. It means the body is functioning normally. The solution is consistency. Choose a routine. Protect it. Measure at approximately the same times each day. Create comparable conditions. When timing becomes consistent, meaningful patterns emerge. And meaningful patterns are what doctors use to make informed decisions. Random numbers create confusion. Reliable patterns create clarity. By this point, you may be realizing something important. Most blood pressure monitoring mistakes are not dramatic. They're subtle. They're easy to overlook. They're the kinds of habits people repeat for years without ever realizing the impact. But when those small habits accumulate, they can create a completely distorted picture of cardiovascular health. And perhaps the most surprising mistake of all is one that affects not only the body, but the mind. Because many seniors unknowingly allow a single blood pressure reading to control their emotions, their confidence, and sometimes their entire day. That mistake has caused more unnecessary anxiety than almost any other issue I see in clinical practice. And understanding it can completely change the way you think about home blood pressure monitoring. In fact, it may be one of the most important lessons in this entire discussion.